On a cold morning of March 29th, a group of residents from Nanywa village, a remote outpost in Bukulula sub-county in Lwengo district, gathered at the township's football ground as the rains beat a gentle rhythm. The residents, some seemingly anxious and others ecstatic, one by one, they took their seats in blue plastic chairs in a white tent. Officials from the two companies kicked off introductions and told the audience about what had prompted their visit.
I urge you all to use the compensation money reasonably. In the agreements we are going to share with you, there are 3 signatories. First is you as the projected affected person, both husband and wife. The second is the Ministry of Energy. And the third is the EACOP company. Once you sign the agreement, next will be the LC1 and Ministry of Government.
It was the last mile of the roughly 2 years resettlement action plan process, signing of documents to pave way for financial compensation for those whose property lie within the crude oil export pipeline corridor.
In the tent over there are people who will read to you all the clauses of the agreement in the language you understand best.
The officials also responded to a number of questions from project-affected persons. At about midday, as the rain intensified, there was seemingly some progress. Some residents were satisfied and others were not. Robert Wamala and his wife Florence Nasozi were amongst those who were pleased with the compensation.
The resettlement action plan started around 2018, and in all honesty, the officials kept informing us about the developments, even during the long delays. The problem is that many of us took loans to do certain things, hoping that the money would come first, which wasn't the case. Now as we get paid, most of us are looking at paying bank loans, and you can imagine how they feel.
They expect to put the money to good use.
We all received financial literacy lessons, and I'm sure we all learned a lesson or two and have an idea of how they want to spend their money. As for me, I intend to buy a piece of land somewhere else and maybe also engage in some business ventures.
65-year-old Mary Nakate, a resident of neighboring Bukulula village, echoed similar sentiments.
I don't have any problems about the way the resettlement action was handled. I am also satisfied with the money due to me, and I'm going to use the money to buy a piece of land elsewhere and save the balance as fees for my grandchildren.
After signing the compensation agreements that day, their money was expected to be deposited on the respective bank accounts after 30 days from the date of signing, after which they would only access it after signing an acknowledgement form. On top of the money, valuation for property, land or crops is a 30% increment as disturbance allowance and 15% increment as delay allowance since the property was first identified and valued. The Bukulula LC1 chairperson, Mazenthia Namugumia, acknowledged that the resettlement action plan in her area has gone well, but urged both government and oil companies to do more.
We are really grateful for everything they have done, especially the seamless resettlement action process, but we need more. We don't have functional schools and health facilities and access to clean water sources, which we share with ANMOs. We would appeal to them to construct for us schools as legacy developments for the communities. Then we can say we benefited fully because, as you know, not everyone is a project-affected person. In some cases, children walk for miles to a nearby school, leading to high dropout rates.
Farthest to the west of Lwengo, in Kabayola village in Sembawele district, we found widowed Annette Namale with a different story.
My husband died about 10 years ago, and we are living on a piece of land given to him by my father-in-law, who also died right around the time when the pipeline mapping started. My father-in-law had written a deed allocating me this land where I live, but legally it's not enough. He also died without a will, and it got complicated. Now we are dealing with the bureaucracy in the Administrator General's office in Kampala before I can be compensated for the land, but it's painfully taking longer.
She's hoping for the best.
The first compensation I received for the crops on the land, I used it to construct a new house where I can live with my daughters-in-law and youngest children. I did that expecting the compensation for the land too would come first, but now I'm out of money and stuck with the project, and yet the rains are destroying everything. We need to be helped, and I cannot really blame the pipeline people.
Across the 27 sub-counties, 3 town councils and 171 villages in the 10 districts of Hoima, Chikube, Kakumiro, Chankwanzi, Mubende, Gomba, Sembabule, Luengo, Rakaya and Chotera, traversed by the 296-kilometer section of the Uganda pipeline, the experiences of project-affected persons vary across these lines. There is also a handful of project-affected persons that have refused to sign compensation agreements over, among others, little money valued for their property. Officials say any outstanding issues are being handled.
Now we have an independent advisor, and that team is comprised of lawyers and I think architects, or who are explaining to the PAPs if there's anything they haven't understood from any explanations given to them by EACOP, the EACOP team, or that's new plan, the implementers. Then they go to the independent team who try to give them independent advice before signing the agreements. So we've encouraged them to have a lot of understanding before they can sign any paperwork. So
compensation of project-affected persons commenced last December around 5 priority areas planned for camp yards and a pump station respectively. According to the EACOP company, some 2,273 project-affected persons, 55% out of 3,700 on the Ugandan route, have so far signed their compensation agreements. At the same time, over the course of the last months, a section of local and international non-governmental organizations advocating for social justice have been closely watching the Resettlement Action Plan exercise. Some have come to the rescue of dissatisfied project-affected persons to show shortcomings in the compensation process, and which has culminated into an ostensibly negative campaign against the $3.55 billion or 13 trillion Uganda shillings project. In mid-March 2020, a group of environmental activists sued the French company Total SE, coordinating the project in a French court, seeking to block the project, claiming among others human rights abuses and irreparable environmental damage before even construction starts. In March 2021, a group of 260 civil society groups wrote to a consortium of European and Asian banks believed to have been involved in project financing of EACOP, telling them to stay away. The NGOs first wrote to the banks over the same in 2018, but their calls were ignored.
I come here to ask the French government to stand with us, to stand with the people and with the planet, to make a decision about whether they are in support of the EACOP project in my country or not.
Total Energies, stop funding our destruction. Stop funding the East African Crude Oil Pipeline. To us, it's life. To you, it's money. You have to put people above profits.
Last month, 2 Ugandan climate activists, Vanessa Nakate and Hilda Flavia Nakabuye, both affiliated to the Global Fridays for Future movement, which stalked the Stop EACOP campaign, went on a European tour, during which they met, among others, Pope Francis in the Vatican, and strongly spoke out against the pipeline. In an article published in the New York Times on April 22nd, Nakate claimed that EACOP will have terrible consequences for people in Uganda and Tanzania. In the latest episode of Stop EACOP series, Polish climate activist Dominika Lasota days ago accosted French President Emmanuel Macron, demanding that his government blocks the development of the project.
The disaster that is going on in Uganda and the whole Africa, the heart of Africa, which is building the EACOP pipeline, is the biggest pipeline in the world. You can stop it. You get the power. You can be the next Angela Merkel. You get the power.
My point is you cannot do it without the government itself. I totally understand your point on Total. Total is not a belonging of the French government.
Since the project took shape after signing of the key agreements, shareholders, tariff and transportation agreements in April 2021, activists and NGOs, local and international, continue to mount an intensive smear campaign against it.
Buried pipeline. There are entities that have communicated that this pipeline is on the ground, is going to flood through the national parks, through Lake Victoria. All of these are negative voices that are not looking at the truth of what we are doing. This system is very robust. Technology has evolved. Those that polluted environments are in the long past when technology was still low. We are in a new era of very advanced technologies, and there's no way that what people are writing could be anywhere near to the truth.
The NGOs base their arguments on human rights and environmental shortcomings, most of which are misplaced since the pipeline construction has not yet commenced, and sometimes based on spin and half-truths. The activists went a notch higher by establishing a website, StopEACOP.net, through which they both crusade against the project and mobilize funding. By Saturday evening, according to the website, the activists had sent out 8,297 emails to the different banks urging them not to finance the project. Bashir Twesije, the chairperson of the Civil Society Coalition on Oil and Gas, an umbrella body established in 2008, currently with membership of 63 NGOs advocating for transparency in the oil sector, told NTV that the diverse opinions should be respected.
I think, first of all, civil society is a very broad issue. Even the media, you're part of civil society. So it's a very broad, you have a number of organizations, you have Ugandan organizations, you have non-Ugandan organizations. So the different organizations look at issues differently, and I think that is okay.
He said even among local NGOs, there are diverse voices.
Even Cisco itself is a big coalition, 63 members. You don't expect to have a unanimous voice, even within Cisco. So we have our dominant position as Cisco, but organizations that feel things should be done differently are still okay to air their concerns.
The negative voices against Uganda's oil project comprising of EACOP, the Kingfisher development project operated by China's Sinopec south of Lake Albert, and the Tilenga project operated by French Total Energies EP, part of which lies within the lush eco-sensitive Macron Falls National Park, and which is home to large populations of, among others, leopards and elephants than anywhere in the world, continues to rattle both government officials and oil company executives in Kampala, Paris, Beijing, and London. It is against this backdrop that President Museveni, during the ceremony to announce the final investment decision on February 1st, directed that NGOs should freely operate in the oil belt.
Apparently, my people in the Calbat were chasing them. So you NGOs don't come here. You heard what the CEO of Total was saying, that when you do that, you cause him problems. Because the NGOs are very powerful in Europe. They go and the campaign, say, Ugandans are not allowing NGOs to inspect the petroleum operations in the Calbat. They're hiding something. So I appeal to the Ugandans and to the local government in Bulisa, in Chikube, those areas, in Noya, let the NGOs go and sleep in the bush if they want.
Following the announcement of the long-awaited final investment decision, oil companies are expected to invest anywhere between $10 billion to $15 billion, that's about 35 to 52 trillion Uganda shillings, during the development phase of the infrastructure required to pump commercial oil in the last quarter of 2025. Early this month, the President wrote a commentary published in the UK's Telegraph newspaper weighing in on the divisive climate change, fossils, fuels, energy transition debate. Tuasije said they have noted positive strides in how some things.
What we are experiencing with EACOP is certainly much better than what we experienced with the refinery project, and we are certainly happy about that progress. But there are still issues that we think that can be worked on, and that's why we have continued to engage.
The EACOP company Deputy General Manager John Bosco Habamugisha said they remain undeterred, especially on securing project financing.
We went through a very detailed environmental and social impact assessment in Uganda, in Tanzania. We have had scrutiny from the global perspectives of environment, of project affected persons. We have had due diligences from almost every lender to ensure that what we are doing is in line with the international development perspectives, the sustainable development goals and others. Indeed, every lender that is still committed to the process is satisfied with the things we are doing.
He said they will continue to find a middle ground with the dissenting voices.
We will continue to engage with them, because definitely there are things we have done that they may not necessarily align with, and we want to understand what are their concerns so that we deal with the issues together. Because the key issue about oil and gas is really sustainable exploitation, and it should be for the benefit of the nationals.
Specifically, the NGOs are referencing the EACOP to the first resettlement action plan between 2011 and 2014 to acquire 29 square kilometers across 13 villages in Hoima district, where among others the Greenfield Refinery, Kabaka International Park and Industrial Park are situated, which exercise was done shabbily. During the Resettlement Action Plan, many project-affected persons, even with financial literacy lessons, misused the compensation money, only to turn around and lament, while several researchers and NGOs have cited several inadequacies in the exercise.
We have very effective grievance handling mechanisms, because naturally when you're affecting people, there are different grievances. We are also ensuring that every man is signing with his wife, so that you don't have gender imbalances in this process. We are providing financial literacy training so that whoever is given compensation, they understand what it means to invest. We are also currently working on livelihood restoration. When you displace people, they take time to grow crops. And so during that period, we want to provide livelihood restoration packages to ensure that if, for example, you have lost a grazing area, we help you. If you have lost food production for 2-3 months.
The EACOP will run 1,443 kilometers from the oil fields in Hoima in mid-western Uganda to the Indian Ocean Tanga port in Tanzania. The Uganda pipeline section stretches for 296 kilometers in 10 districts, while the Tanzania section runs for 1,147 kilometers through 25 districts and 8 regions. Altogether, in Uganda and Tanzania, there are 30,000 households whose land is touched by the project. But in terms of project-affected persons, there are 3,900 in Uganda and 9,000 in Tanzania, majority of whom are economically impacted, whose portions of gardens are touched but not displaced entirely.
We have raised a number of issues, and we are happy that some of the issues have actually been addressed in the environment and social impact assessments. And what we are now waiting to see is how actually the implementation of the environmental impact statement, how it's put in practice, and how we're able to mitigate the environmental impacts.
The issue is about sustainable development. If we are to exploit this oil resource, we have to be doing it in a sustainable manner.
The crude oil export pipeline is one of the two mediums alongside the refinery agreed upon by government and the oil companies in the commercialization framework signed in February 2014 for developing Uganda's oil project. Total East Africa Midstream BV, which backed the southern route through Tanzania as the least cost for the pipeline, which was concretized in April 2016 and later became the lead coordinator for the project, undertook back-to-back environmental and social impact assessments in Uganda and Tanzania between 2017 and 2018, focusing extensively on the physical, ecological, social baselines of the project. The voluminous environmental and social impact assessment report for Uganda, detailing potential impacts, positive and negative on the economy, people and the environment in Uganda, was submitted to NEMA in mid-2018. The report also detailed measures to avoid or reduce negative impacts, and after the measures are applied, the predicted remaining impacts. The report was reviewed by both the oil sector regulator, the Petroleum Authority of Uganda, and the National Environmental Management Authority, which, as required by law, organized 3 public hearings in late 2019, held in Kakumiro, Mubende and Chotera districts respectively, to input feedback of concerned stakeholders, including the project-affected persons and NGOs. The approval of the Uganda Environmental Social Impact Assessment led to NEMA awarding Total East Africa Midstream BV a certificate of approval for the project in December 2020. Months down the road, officials say NGOs are being disingenuous by claiming otherwise.
What we are talking about at the moment is environmental preparedness. We have not yet seen the EACOP laid on the ground. We have not yet seen many of the environmental impacts because the construction is yet to start. So our concern has been, how are you prepared as a company? How are you prepared as a government to address issues like, say, of the line crossing wetlands, the line crossing forested areas, and other biodiversity? Of course, it's going to pass on the fringes of Lake Victoria. How are you prepared to manage the environmental impacts arising out of that?
So we do listen to them. And I think what they needed was more engagement, which we have addressed, and we'll continue to have discussions that are open. And where we agree, we agree. Where we disagree, we define the issues and we deal with them.
Across the world, pipelines are the most preferred transportation modes for countries with large volumes of oil and gas. As of December 2020, there were at least 2,381 operational oil and gas pipelines distributed across 162 countries. Of these, the United States of America has the longest network of pipelines, spanning 91,067 kilometers for oil and 333,366 kilometers for gas, followed by Russia and Canada. The Uganda-Tanzania pipeline, juxtaposed with the already existing mega pipelines and the amount of emissions from Europe's automobile industries, some analysts say it is not far-fetched to think that there are some ulterior motives behind the Stop EACOP campaign than just climate activism.